Hi folks, Dr. Leitner here, and this video is a short walkthrough of the Project 3 research paper assignment. So at this point you have collected all your ingredients, which are your sources, and you are kind of starting to mix those sources up. And the research paper is kind of the cake that's going to come out of the oven. Now, to continue with that analogy, everyone who cooks knows that you can't, let's say you have to bake a cake at 375 for 30 minutes, you can't bake that cake at 600 degrees for 20 minutes and expect the same result. So you need to take the time to write and take the time to kind of let your sources converse with each other, incubate with each other in your mind. And that's why I'm not the biggest fan of people bringing in sources at the last minute. It's fine if you have to do that. I don't have a rule against it, but you tend to come up with a better paper and a more interesting paper and a more surprising paper if you limit yourself and you say, okay, I have these 5 to 8 solid sources. I'm going to make something really good out of this, just like a cook, if they have 5 good ingredients, can make pretty much anything, right? So that's our analogy. And at this point, you are looking at this assignment, and this assignment is the suggestion you are making based on the question you have asked. So you've asked a question, and now this research paper is going to try to answer that question in a systematic way. So that's kind of the purpose of the assignment. Now, let's just go through the requirements. So I really suggest that you take these requirements and you make each of them a heading in your paper. So your paper will kind of be broken up, paragraph by paragraph. Some headings might have more than one paragraph, but just the same way I kind of put headings in my assignments. Each section there has a heading, so you know what is coming next. This assignment and all the assignments in this course, actually, it's okay to use headings, and it really helps people focus their writing and put things where they belong. Okay, so each heading is kind of like a box, and each idea is kind of like, well, where does this belong? Okay, this has to do with the purpose, this has to do with the audience, this has to do with the continued research I'm suggesting, or whatever. Okay, so number 1, your paper must provide the background and need for the research that you conducted, etc. Now, so this is a section where you can bring in exigency and stakeholders and audience and all that, and you could have little subheadings for maybe each of those. Okay. You should articulate a controlling purpose early in the project. So you might have a heading here that says purpose. Okay, the purpose of this research paper. In other words, your readers need to understand what you are trying to accomplish in the project. Are you trying to convince a group of people to take a particular action based on your research? Are you trying to identify gaps or oversights in knowledge and lead others to continuing research and thinking about those gaps? So, again, those are two very different things. So, and it could the thing you are trying to persuade your reader of should be somewhere in between there. Either one side or the other, or somewhere in between. Now, that does point to the fact that this essay is a little bit persuasive. You're not doing the sleazy used car salesman hard sales pitch, but it's kind of this gentle persuasion where you are laying out the information in an unbiased way and putting them in conversation in an unbiased way and seeing where the data take you and convincing your readers of that. Okay, so you should present your research to your audience in a way that makes it intelligible to them and supports your controlling purpose. Okay, that might not be a section, but that's kind of an overall thing. Okay, where when you're looking at your sources, what are you citing? Well, what is your audience going to expect? That's a huge consideration. 4, your research should be integrated. In other words, not include any drop quotes or unexplained materials. Okay, so the rule for this is you really want to have 2 or 3 sources in the same paragraph, and they're all talking to each other. Maybe they're reinforcing each other. Maybe they're agreeing with each other. They don't have to be disagreeing. But have individual paragraphs where you're like, okay, here is an idea that people are arguing about. Here's what A says. Here's what B says. Here's what C says. I think it's more like something else because X, Y, Z. So that's kind of a structure of a paragraph, a sketch of a structure that you might consider. A drop quote is where it looks to your audience like you've got 2 sentences and you feel like you needed some evidence in there. So you just put a quote and you quoted somebody's words and you put quotes around it and you didn't really integrate it you didn't introduce that person, you didn't say why this is important, you didn't say how it relates to the conversation. So it's kind of a, let's say you're eating a cake, okay? What if you had a big, undissolved glob of flour in the middle of your cake? That would be a lousy cake, right? So a drop quote is like that. It's like this chunk of something you really don't want in your cake. Okay, not like something tasty like a walnut or something, which might be good in a cake, but something you don't want. So drop quote. Okay. Your persuasive research project must acknowledge and try to address any limitations in the project. These limitations might be material, social, political, and/or positional. So this is a place where you can kind of say, hey, there's other things I would have liked to look at instead of this, and I will if I had more time, I would shore up that deficiency, or whatever. Say, hey, I don't have many contacts in the industry, so I had to relate a lot to written materials or whatever limitation you think you might have. Requirement 8 is the length requirement. I do check the length, but if you go a little over, that's fine as long as you are being judicious with your words. And next to last, your essay needs to include and integrate at least 2 multimodal elements. So these are pictures, sounds, hyperlinks, anything that is non-text should be included. And you guys have done a real good job on this so far, so I'm not concerned about that. And all sources need to be cited, okay? MLA conventions, and that means in-text citations with page numbers or the last name of the author or the name of the organization, and then a works cited page that has the more detailed information. Okay, guys, here's the rubric that will also help keep you on track in terms of what I expect at every level. And that's it. Sorry, this was a little bit long, but I did want to go into more description on each criteria. Thanks very much, and I look forward to reading your work.